Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Israel and Iran have waged a shadow war for decades. They've used cyber attacks, targeted killings and proxy groups. But on the 1st of April, Israel's attack on Iran's embassy compound in Damascus killed 2 Iranian generals and several IRGC officers. Iran retaliated on Saturday by firing 300 missiles and drones at Israel. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his immediate war cabinet are planning to strike back. Israel's main ally, the US, has asked Israel not to risk widening the war and has also said that US forces will not join the attack. But Israel could respond. And if they do, what could they do? They could hit at Iran's strategic facilities, including IRGC bases, or worse, hit their nuclear research facilities. Now, Iranian air defenses are not as sophisticated as Israel's multi-layered missile defenses. Iran has no regional allies who will protect it. How will Israel strike back at Iran? Will it be cyber attacks or covert operations? Will it be inside Iran or will it attack Iranian assets outside? What will be the implication of that attack for the region? Will the conflict become wider? A red line has been crossed. What's the next chapter of this conflict going to be? Joining me to discuss this today are Itai Melchior, former member of the National Security Council in Israel, Arjun Hardas, and my colleague Aditya Kaul. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Itai, I want to start by asking you this. 300 drones and missiles fired at Israel. I can't think of any country in the world that could emerge unscathed from such a barrage. Now, it wouldn't surprise a lot of people who know Israel, that's the Israel that we know. It's resilient and undefeatable. But now we must ask, will Israel retaliate for that attack by Iran?
To answer your first point, of course, this was an amazing feat of our defense industry and of the IDF, a multi-layered defense system from different missiles, jet fighters, all of us waiting because it's many hours for the drones to arrive, and all of us waiting, and in the end, the whole story ending as it did. Yes, Israel has said it will retaliate. Israel has to retaliate in this region. You have to show that you retaliate. Though, how you do that is a whole different question. I remind you that we have this open front in a few other areas of Iranian proxies. If we're talking about the north of Hezbollah, Hamas in Gaza, where we still have Rafah enclave, which has not been conquered by Israel, and this is something that still has to be done. So all in all, when you consider Israel's response, you have to take into account all of these things. On the plus side, you have to see that the world is more or less giving Israel room, and Iran has actually done a big service to Israel that was a bit frowned upon by the different countries, and suddenly is back on the positive side, which may give leeway for an attack on Rafah. Israel will not attack civilian infrastructure. We have no problem, no beef with the Iranians. We have a problem with the regime. We have a problem with their nuclear plan and their missile plan, and therefore, most likely we will see some kind of response that will help us also fend off future attacks. So my estimate would be that that will be the kind of strike we will see.
Right. I mean, it's chilling words there that Iran could be at the receiving end of an Israeli attack, and the attack, as you were saying, is not going to be a question of if, but when. Arjun, you've been looking at the situation very closely. It would have been catastrophic if even 10 of those missiles or drones had gotten through and resulted in civilian casualties. But seeing it from India here, looking at no loss of life. There was that one Bedouin child who was injured. I hope she comes back very quickly to her parents. But given the fact that no casualties were reported, significant civilian casualties, why would why would Israel need to strike back at Iran? Is it, as Itai mentioned, the fact that you're in a rough neighborhood and if you can't, take these attacks lying down, that would be seen as a sign of weakness? What's your take on this?
Absolutely correct. The thing is, Israel has already lost some of its deterrence initially on the 7th of October.
Right.
and if it continues like this in any way possibly, it's going to lose a lot of deterrence, and it's going to be open season by the enemies. Now, if you recall, 34 years ago, 33 years ago, when Iraq sent Scud missiles, I know the former air chief at that time of the Israeli Air Force. I had a talk with him. He said my F-15s were on the runway, ready to take off and hit Iraq. Until we got a call at that time from Shamir, Prime Minister Shamir, that no, don't go. In return, they got a lot of goodies, Patriot missiles, etc., technology.
Just to keep Israel
out of the conflict.
Absolutely.
Now, so the ability to strike back is not the problem. Now, this is also not a new thing. In the sense that if you recall a few years ago, there was the Stuxnet, the virus attack against Israel at Nuts. So they've done that
against Iran.
Against
Iranian
nuclear facility. The centrifuges went out of sync. Then after that, there was this other news around the same time of their entire archives being physically stolen by the Israelis.
Nuclear research information
has been picked up, not just online, but physically taken away.
No, but Arjun, this is an era where it was covert operations, it was intelligence, shadow wars, and today you're looking at a scenario where Israeli jets could bomb Iran the way they did against the Iraqi Osirak reactor.
But remember what Itai said quite correctly, the people of Iran are not the enemy. And this is something Israel would have considered. They, for many years ago, around I think 14, 15 years ago, they set up what is called a depth corps. As opposed to a military corps in that sense. A depth corps is the one headed by a major general who looks after the Iranian front separately. So he's been in that person, whoever it has been, a new one was appointed last April. Has to look at multiple options, including covert options, obviously, which would include how many people in Iran also would be helpful. The memory isn't that long. 1979, up till 1979, they had an embassy. They had military contacts between Iran and Israel.
Of course, they were very close friends.
Very close friends.
Forget that.
As the joke goes, that this was the first direct flight between Iran and Israel since 1979. With these things. Now, they have friends and they have contacts. There are many Jews of Iranian descent in Israel. And of course, Los Angeles has a whole bunch of them, 500,000. But there are contacts. Israelis are not stupid in these matters. They keep covert contacts, etc. So there could be a lot of assistance given to them, especially in the last few years, the way the Iranian regime has targeted its own people. There could be a lot of assistance given by locals, covertly, overtly, by to the Israelis. So there are, and then again, coming back to the same point, what are the options? It's not military only.
There could be a range of other options. But I want to bring Aditya in. Aditya, you've been looking at Israel very closely. In fact, you've done a series of documentaries after the 7th of October. But tell us this point that Itai made. It's a very important point, that our enemy is not the people of Iran. It is the military of Iran, specifically the IRGC. How would Israel calibrate its attack or retaliation in such a way that the people of Iran are not affected and they would say target only the regime?
Firstly, Sandeep, there's no doubt in my mind that Israel will retaliate. It will retaliate, and just like you said, it's not about if, it's about when. It might have been delayed because of the global pressure, particularly from the Western countries. The US has been bargaining hard. But what we do understand is that in the coming weeks, there could be a significant escalation that could embroil the entire region. Because I'm saying this, that this is not, we could see that civilians are not, damaged in Israel because of these 300 projectiles.
It's a miracle.
But this is a significant escalation because this comes directly from the Iranian soil. So it's not that the Israel will go after the proxies this time around. Of course, the proxies are being attacked. In Lebanon, we saw an attack happening only yesterday, where commanders were attacked. But we'll see a direct retaliation. There are multiple options that are being considered, as we discussed. There is the Bonab, Atomic Research Center, which is 500 kilometers, around Azerbaijan, a close ally of Israel, where this attack could be there. There are other nuclear facilities, just like our guest from Israel said, that these nuclear facilities are being seen as an existential threat to Israel. So there could be a direct attack on them, and that's why Iran has gone into a huddle and for now shut down these nuclear facilities completely. And on the other hand, there is the IRGC, which is already under the attack, and there are several command centers of the IRGC around Iran and its periphery, which could come under significant attack.
Very important point there, Aditya, the fact that Iran's nuclear program could be in the crosshairs of Israel's retaliation. And Itai, do you see this as an opportunity, that once in a lifetime opportunity that Iran has presented to Israel to take out Iran's nuclear weapons program? This is something that Israel has been acutely conscious of for the last 20 years because it presents a direct existential threat to Israel. What's your comment on this?
Well, certainly, Sandeep, you are totally right on this. I think I don't really understand the Iranian regime here. I know they had some pressure from home to retaliate. The fact that they came out claiming this was an embassy that was hit, which wasn't really, and therefore Iranian soil, and therefore needed a response from Iranian soil, actually put them into a big problem, because we see now that the EU is already considering sanctions on the missile program. And you have to remember that the whole issue with the nuclear has two parts. One, the nuclear, and one, the missile. And the missile program has been getting much less attention, and will now get more attention and sanctions. And I agree, your previous speaker rightfully said the attack does not have to be missiles or something airborne. There are other ways to strike. There are many forces inside Iran who are not happy with their regime. We saw the turnout in elections recently, which was very low. So therefore, I believe that it is an opportunity here, and if Israel even can't miss such an opportunity, and therefore that's most likely what we will see.
Right, Arjun. But what could be the the fallout of such an attack when Israel and Iran are directly engaging in conflict after almost 40 years? There's been this covert war that's been on after Lebanon, 85 on. But what would be the impact on the region? Would they be, do you think that Iran would be able to absorb an attack like this? I'm acutely aware of the fact that they don't have the kind of sophisticated air defenses that Israel has. Would they be able to absorb an attack like this, or would they go out full out on a war? And if so, what would be the consequences?
Well, they've just already tried to go to war, sending 300 aerial weapons, including ballistic missiles, not just drones, so to say. Ballistic missiles were used. And if you remember, the target was the Nevatim Air Base, which is where the Adirs, the F-35s are kept, the most lethal aircraft in air defense against Iran. And there's a story about it, F-35 entering Iran and exiting, without even anybody knowing about it. So the impact, and frankly, the actions of some of the Arab countries during this attack, during this aerial attack, specifically Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, there are some rumors of that, have shown that Iran is pretty much isolated.
It is.
So there is China probably, even they are not going to get into a direct attack. If Iran, what can it do? It has tried its best. If it tries to lob a nuclear weapon or a dirty bomb into Israel, it's finished. That's the end of Iran overall. So the options are also limited about how much can they retaliate. They've tried their bit. They have, as they say in answer, they have in a sort of a response. Okay, we have had to do this, so we are done. And we won't escalate. That's not going to happen. Israel has to retaliate, and how it does it, which could include something like let's say EMP, which means shut down the electric systems, and nobody gets harmed. So there are a lot of other options available, but will it go into a regional action? I don't think so.
It won't have a
regional fallout.
But
the proxies will attack.
The government of India's favorite line is, "Now is not the time for war." Prime Minister Modi said that a few years back in the context of the Russia-Ukraine war. How would New Delhi look at this, given the fact that a potential war in West Asia could spike, oil prices could go past $100 a barrel? How would New Delhi react to something like this, and how imperative is it for them to kind of act to prevent such a full-out conflict from?
Firstly, New Delhi is already calculating this ever since the G20, because after the G20,
September,
the kind of the connectivity projects that were signed at that time. It became a major setback once the 7th October massacre really happened in southern Israel. So New Delhi is aware, New Delhi is in engagement with multiple partners in West Asia and in Western countries, and might have a solution to that. Of course, we have the experience from the Russia-Ukraine war as well, where we have, steady ties with Russia at the cost of, at the same time having good ties with the Western countries. And just like recently a senior diplomat from the US said, that New Delhi's relations with Russia are very much independent, and the sanctions really do not matter in this particular case. So a similar kind of a situation could be developed, because once you engage with the Israeli diplomats, they tell you that they completely understand the New Delhi's relationship with Palestine, which is completely independent of Israel, India, strategic ties, defense ties, and just like Arjun mentioned, it may or may not engulf the region. That is clear. But Iran certainly has gone all of its way. It's directly attacked Israel, and its proxies have been attacking the sea route, the connectivity, and different other ships and cargoes in the region. So all these countries will have to watch this very carefully. And it's not just the military IRGC and the nuclear facility. Something like a cyber attack could also completely bring Iran to its knees. So there are multiple options which will be happening, but I think US is pressurizing Israel to, as much as possible, delay this, and perhaps at the cost of also their campaign and military strike in Gaza. There could be some kind of a deal that could be achieved in the next few days.
Sandeep, I'll just add this, that what has also happened, one of the other paths that Israel is using a multilateral forum, which means the EU, for example, has just begun deliberations about bringing in sanctions against the IRGC and Al-Quds. So that is also one more side. But one thing which I should mention, and which is being missed out, is that today at 3 p.m. at Eastern American time, East Coast time, the Palestinians are applying for a full membership of the Security Council, and there is maybe at a different time it would be different. But at this point, doing this right after the attacks is going to create a problem, and there is a lot of backlash against that. So to prevent that from happening is also part of is also connected to this story.
So Itai, my last question to you is what would possibly make Israel not hit Iran kinetically at this moment, given how fragile things are in the world? What were the measures that you could see which are, say, non-kinetic, maybe a fresh sanctions regime against Iran to ensure that it doesn't pose a crisis or a threat to West Asia? What do you think the Israeli regime would deeply appreciate short of a full-scale kinetic option against Iran?
So I think the keywords were mentioned just in this last segment. One is called the US, and we are in election year, and there's also tension around the Philippines and Taiwan with China. And the last thing this administration needs is a full-out war in the Middle East. One, because it's bad by itself, and the second you also alluded to is the oil prices. I think it's unprecedented, or maybe happened once, that a residing president wins elections if oil prices are rising. It's actually interesting to see that they haven't, despite what's going on in the Sea of Yemen and with the Suez Canal technically shut and a lot of the oil going around. We still haven't seen, and I think that's a management by the US with its allies in the Gulf and other allies to make sure that this doesn't happen. So it is a big interest of the US that this doesn't blow up, and therefore they are probably willing to give Israel quite a lot of things. It could be declaring the ICG as a terrorist organization, could be deeper sanctions, could be supplying Israel with weapons that it may need later on with heavier ammunition. And also, according to some sources already reported, that Israel has been given by the US a bit of a longer leash when it comes to Rafah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Itai, for putting out those non-kinetic options. And as you correctly mentioned, the US has tremendous leverage on Israel at this point. So if Israel retaliates, all depends on the kind of deal that America is willing to present to Israel and make it reassess its kinetic options. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Itai, Melchior, Arjun, Hardas, and my colleague Aditya Kaul. We'll be watching that story very carefully, and we hope better sense prevails. And as Prime Minister Modi is fond of saying, now is not the time for war. Since Prime Minister Modi won power a decade ago, the BJP has dominated Indian politics. Now, a large part of their ability to deliver is often attributed to the personal charisma of Prime Minister Modi. But what's often overlooked is the sheer organizational depth and discipline that make his party one of the most efficient electoral machines in modern democratic politics. Now, this is largely in part because it's also backed by the million-strong cadre of its ideological fountainhead, the RSS. The RSS is considered the fountainhead of the BJP, but with its highly motivated cadres, they have a brilliant organization and the skills to reach the last voter in the queue. Now, the party has its units divided into state, district and local level units with grassroots workers who can target as few as 30 voters. In fact, that's what the BJP's electoral machine is all about. Now, an organization of the RSS has just released a booklet to prepare the groundswell of sentiment needed to win general elections 2024. How is the RSS training and producing such highly motivated cadres? We have with us today Ratan Sharda, author and RSS member, Suresh Kochatil, my colleague Brijesh Pandey, and of course, my colleague Kiran Tare from Mumbai. Kiran, this 64-page pamphlet that you just showed us, which is the organization that brought this out? Was it the RSS or one of the front organizations? And what does it say basically?
This booklet is prepared by the RSS top brass to give an idea on what points the RSS cadre should go to the voters and appeal them for maximum number of votes.
Right.
Now, what have been asked? They have been asked to conduct small meetings with the residents, a group of residents, and explain them why voting is important. See, RSS has been doing this since every single election. Every time, last year, Matadata Manch, they used to print pamphlets and visit door to door, appealing the voters for coming out on the last day. But this time, there is a little change, and the RSS cadre is expected to reach out to the voters in a group and explain them why voting is important on 4 points.
Right.
That is national security,
yes,
infrastructure, and of course the national sentiments like the Ram Temple and the growth of economy of the country.
Absolutely. Mr. Sharda, you know this document, it's called Rashtra Pratham or Nation First. It's very interesting. It talks about all the pillars, the social and religious and spiritual achievements of the BJP government over the last 10 years. And, you know, it talks about basically the RSS's cultural agenda which the BJP government has achieved in the last 10 years. Is this the first time that the RSS has brought out, or one of the organizations has brought out a document like this to go out to the voters and tell them to vote for the BJP?
Let me tell you what RSS points are for discussion, which they tell that go and talk to people.
Yes.
That is Rashtra Hit Mein Matdan.
Right.
We vote for the good of the nation. Shat Pratishat Matdan, 100% voting, which was started in 2014,
right,
which saw steep rise in voting percentages. Pehle Matdan, baad mein Jalpan, that means give voting a priority.
Right.
No nota. Fifth
Right.
point is to meet the new voters, naye voters se milna. So this
Right.
is what RSS messages to its cadre, that do this and reach out to people to so that they vote.
Right.
There is no other agenda apart from this, because if people vote for the
Right.
nation good, we will
Yes.
see the right results come.
Right.
Further, as Mr. Taret pointed out, that you in the beginning pointed out that these are the RSS cadre who do the job.
Right.
Again, I want to disappoint you, though I would be very happy to take the credit. Yes, in my youth, we used to, you go to the booth, we used to man the booths.
Right.
Since 1977, at least I remember, when I was college going young man,
Right.
to be going to these various booths. But now BJP has shown huge cadre.
Yes.
It has got a huge membership, huge cadre. This Panna Pramukh, this booth Pramukh, this is
Right.
all this is managed by BJP now.
By
not
the BJP
RSS.
cadre.
So
Right.
just to clarify some of the points, though one likes to take credit, but RSS is the last organization to take credit. And though I appreciate all this, positive news about RSS, but I must say BJP's grown very big. It
Right.
has got its own organization.
Right.
And RSS role in these elections is only limited to motivating people to go out and vote.
Right.
And
So,
also
Brijesh,
talk about national issues.
I get what Mr. Sharda
Right.
is saying, and I understand why he has to say this, because RSS would usually want to disassociate
distance itself from politics.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but you know how it works.
Yes.
So I understand what he's trying to say. In our colony, I mean, a place where I live,
Yes.
and in couple of other places, this is the RSS guy. There's small groups,
Right,
they will
right.
come, they'll make sure that, that all the, whether you have got the voting slip or not, and they'll
Yes.
make sure that there's double check on the
Right.
entire gig and all. So that is there. They will definitely go and meet and try and tell people that, that this is what we do. You
Right.
should go out and vote for Modi, because, two things have happened post 2014.
Yes.
A, Prime Minister Modi has emerged as the catalyst which the BJP sorely lacked. BJP and RSS both lacked. Because they never had a catalyst which could propel the entire 180, 190 into an absolute majority gain. This is what Prime Minister has brought in. The second is like the RSS is like the sinews. As much as they would like to distance themselves from the from claiming credit from this, they are the sinews of the organization. Nobody, irrespective. I understand Mr. Sharda's compulsion not to take credit, but the fact of the matter is that that there is not enough patta moves within the BJP and the organizational structure until unless it's blessed by the RSS.
Right. So absolutely. No. In fact, one of Mr. Sharda's colleagues in Mumbai had given me this fascinating explanation of the difference between the Congress and the BJP. He says that the Congress does not have an RSS behind it, the BJP does, and the RSS ensures the steady assembly line of cadres that go seamlessly into the BJP, and we are the backbone of the BJP. Nothing can happen to the BJP as long as the RSS is there. And the reverse also holds true. But Suresh, this point about the, the closeness of the RSS and the BJP. The last time the BJP ignored the RSS, that was 20 years ago, the India Shining moment, when the relationship between the party and its ideological parent had literally broken down. How are things different now, 20 years later?
I think Mr. Arjun Sharda made a very clear point that RSS does not need now to get it. The RSS fights, when you talk about RSS, there's got a number of organizations within the RSS which works on different aspects of the society. And I remember even during the Telangana election just went past, and since I am one of the shakas in an area called Alwar in Secunderabad, we went around houses and told people that they need to vote. We didn't tell them whom to vote. That is very important. We told them that they need to go and vote, and they need to ensure that they are voting first hour in the morning, have to do your vote and then go and have your breakfast later.
Right.
This is, I spoke to Sunday Times with London and month when the story appeared on March 23rd. Wherein, because the question that was often asked is, how much does RSS influence the BJP? And I very clearly said, no, BJP, as Mr. Sharda explained, has its own potential right now. Maybe it didn't have it 20 years ago, but it has a huge amount of volunteers that work behind this, unpaid volunteers. This is something the Congress doesn't have, because in Congress you need to pay them to work for you. In other parties too. I think the only two card-based parties in India, one are the communists, another is the BJP. The communists, of course, are finished. Even in Kerala, they become capitalists. But in BJP, as much as the Panna promotes and others would do, they ensure that the last voter, who's in their list of 1,000-odd voters, come to the booth and vote before 12 o'clock. After 12 o'clock, they are tracked down and persuaded to come to the booth. The idea is, for example, you have Kolaba in Mumbai, you have the Madhapur or High-Tech City in Hyderabad, where the voting is less than 50%, which is pathetic. People take a holiday on voting day. This is not done. I think these are the same people who will sit in the living rooms and consider the drainage, the road, the traffic, everything. But they will not go out and vote. And I think that is RSS persuading them, saying that please go and vote. It doesn't say whom to vote.
Well, of course.
That message is very, very obvious.
Thanks, Suresh. But Brijesh, you have another view on this. Of course, the RSS is asking
the point
BJP,
is that I understand, why the RSS would always want to make a distance. Mr. Ratan Sharda knows about the organization much more than me. I would not going to wade into that. But one thing is also there. There's a position within the BJP RSS which look liaison between the BJP and the RSS. There is a proper designation which works for it. And I agree with the fact that majority of the stories are kite flying when people say that RSS has exerted pressure or Prime Minister Modi has bowed down before the pressure. Those are the stories because Prime Minister, you have to understand, is a product of RSS, but simultaneously he is one of the most unique political phenomena which we have seen after Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, given the kind of electoral rationing of which he has done, the successes he has scripted. So, but other than that, still, irrespective of how vast the organization has become, the nuts and bolts, it's like the organization is not because every day 10,000 cadres are adding. It is also by merger and acquisition. People from out of other parties come and join and all. So to make sure that the ideological ship remains prim and proper is the task which is definitely done by the RSS.
Right, absolutely. And this document, Brijesh, fascinating. Rashtra Pratham, as of course Suresh and Mr. Sharda would distance themselves from it, but it's a very well put together document, I must say. Whoever's put it together, as Kiran says, it's one of the RSS's front organizations, but it beautifully outlines the agenda of this government and how it has, to a large extent, achieved a lot of what the RSS set out to do in terms of the spiritual and cultural awakening.
Absolutely.
Vikas bhi or virasat bhi, as the Prime Minister says. That is the one of the key pillars of this document. But Kiran, closing comments from you. What was the mood at the 3-day RSS meet in September, which you had covered in Pune last year?
The Pune meet was basically about how to celebrate the Ram Pran Pratishtha in Ayodhya temple. That was all about. So you must be remembering that we were the first one who had disclosed the date of 22nd January in September.
Absolutely.
So that was the planning, that how to go ahead about this, how to go ahead about the celebrations.
Right.
But this time, the voter awareness campaign, I will call it as a voter campaign, it is going to make a big impact in Maharashtra, because Maharashtra is a very tough state for the BJP, and it is the goodwill of the RSS which may help the BJP to win the elections. Otherwise, it's very difficult for the BJP. That's why it might be a sort of thing, it might be a sort of understanding between the BJP and the voters, that let the RSS workers inside the societies and housing complexes, where they will have meetings with the residents and they will try to convince them to go on a large scale, because Mumbai and Maharashtra, certain parts of Maharashtra, are going to vote on 20th of May, which will be the height of summer, and half of the people have planned to go outside Mumbai on vacations. That is very important.
Absolutely. Then you need to mobilize the the voters to vote on those days, Brijesh, considering how sensitive Maharashtra is, and that could be a
So I think the biggest challenge for any party is whether you are able to get, if you have 100 voters in a particular block, whether you are able to get all those 100 or 95 to the booth to cast their vote or not. That is the only and the biggest challenge which a political party sees on a polling day, and this is where fortunes are made or marred.
Right.
Again, I would say that as much they would like to distance, the fact is that yes, there is a proper well-oiled BJP machinery, but the guidance, the Margadarshan, as they say, not the Margdarshak Mandal, but the Margadarshan is definitely comes from the RSS, irrespective of the kind of denial which is being
right. Absolutely. And Brijesh, it's really important that Prime Minister Modi returns for the RSS. He returns this time for a third time, because there is a huge anniversary coming up next year, and I'm told that the 2025 anniversary, the centenary celebrations of the RSS are going to be something bigger than anything that we've seen in the past. I mean, of course, that is a matter of a few months away, but that is going to be the event that everybody is going to look out for after the consecration of the Ram temple, the Pran Pratishtha, and of course the commissioning of the temple. But that's the RSS for you, the ideological parent of the BJP, a force to reckon with in the 2024 elections, as Kiran has brought out with this 63-page exhaustive document asking voters to vote for the BJP. Of course, the RSS will never admit, as they say in the world of the military thing, there will always be plausible deniability, Brijesh, with this document, but it's too, perfectly put together for it to be any other organization other than the one that we know it is. But thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ratan Sharda, Suresh Kochetil, and of course my colleagues Kiran Tare and Brijesh.
Second comment. Brijesh mentioned about the RSS being the sinews of BJP.
Yes.
I would say RSS is the conscience keeper of the BJP.
Absolutely. RSS is the conscience keeper of the BJP.
I began by saying that we are going for getting Shat-Pratishat Matdan that we started in 2014. We stand by that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharda. Thanks for being on the News9 Plus show. The great Indian elections begin tomorrow as Indians get ready to flaunt their index finger. News9 Plus asks, is it time to retire the ink and think digital? Joining me to talk about this is my colleague Karthik Malhotra. Karthik, tell us about the story that you've just put together.
So this was an interesting quest, in fact, that our colleagues Shreya as well as Vaji in Bangalore sort of, went ahead with. And the quest really was that this indelible ink, who makes it? Where does it come from? and that took them to the city of Mysore. And then, of course, there are great details, fascinating details in the story on how that ink is really made. But I think while working on the story, the larger question which the team came out with was that is the ink really relevant even today in the time of digitization that we live in, where your Aadhaar and your biometrics are used for everything from your Digi-Yatra travel to, you know, any sort of identification that you want to do. The question really was that do we still need the ink when you can have facial recognition, when you can have biometrics, and when you can really have a complete digital recognition process in place, where once you voted and go into any booth, once you voted, you will not be permitted entry into any other voting booth. So by default, your face will be able to enter a polling booth just once, and you cast your vote, and that's the end of it.
Exactly like the Digi-Yatra that the government has brought out in airports. But there are other, you know, interesting points that were raised in that documentary, which is about possibly other options, like, you know, a pen, for instance, using a pen instead of this very if I may put it, clumsy way of applying ink. It looks very, you know.
Yeah, it seems fairly old world given that we are sitting in 2024. And in fact, the US already uses the pen. It doesn't use the brush, right? So these are new. I mean, it's the same technology, it's the same ink, but the form factor of that ink is changing. And in fact, the Election Commission is already examining. And, you know, people are hopeful that by the next general elections 5 years from now, we should be in a position to use two kinds of inks. One is the same present ink minus the brush with a pen instead of a marker instead of the brush, and the other is also an invisible ink which is being worked upon. So I think you know, all those who vote primarily to showcase on social media that they've exercised their constitutional duty of voting will not be able to do it with the invisible ink.
So you won't be able to hold up your finger
What
anymore.
do you show? It'll just be a plain finger with no mark on it.
Oh, who knows? It would be probably a barcode or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's quite possible. Well, let's see. I think we'll know 5 years from now whether that's going to happen or not.
That's an important thing there. And that's what the story tells you, that the fact that 2024 could literally be the last election where you would see this kind of clumsy way of applying, you know, voter ink on the index fingers of voters. But for watching that story, you have to download the News9 Plus app and watch the story. Voter mark, think beyond ink. It's only on the News9 Plus app. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Aditya.
That ink is a semi-permanent dye called the indelible ink.
We are the sole manufacturer of this indelible ink.
Don't try to repair something which is working.
And if you have facial recognition, you can go vote in any booth anywhere based on where you are, and then it will be recorded that you can't vote anywhere else again.
Can we retire indelible ink and use biometrics? Theoretically, my answer would be yes.